My grandmother, Amrita Kaur, was the kind of woman who could make the world feel softer. Her hands, weathered like old leather, always smelled of cardamom and turmeric from hours spent rolling dough for parathas or stirring pots of fragrant dal. Her laugh was a melody, high and lilting, and her eyes, deep brown like polished teak, held stories she never told. She called me Beta, even when I was 32, and her countryside house, tucked in a quiet corner of Punjab, was my sanctuary growing up. The house itself was a relic, its mustard-yellow walls peeling under decades of monsoon rains. The garden bloomed with marigolds and jasmine, and every evening Grandma would sit on the veranda, sipping chai, her dupatta fluttering in the breeze. She'd tell me tales of talking peacocks or mischievous jinns who hid in mango trees, her voice weaving magic that made my childhood feel infinite. But there was one story she never shared, the one behind the attic door. It was a heavy wooden door at the end of the upstairs hallway, always padlocked, the brass glinting like a warning. As a child, I tiptoed past it, half expecting it to creak open on its own. Once at 10, I asked, "Daddy, what's up there?" She froze, her smile faltering before saying, "Some doors aren't meant to be opened, Beta." "Let them be." Her tone wasn't angry, just heavy, like she was carrying something I couldn't see. I never pushed. Grandma's love was enough to make me trust her silences. She'd knit me sweaters too big for my frame, insisting I'd grow into them, and save the best pieces of jalebi for me, even when I was too old to beg for sweets. But there were moments, fleeting, strange, when I'd catch her staring at the attic door, her hands trembling as she clutched her prayer beads. She'd mutter something under her breath, too soft to hear, and then smile at me like nothing was wrong. Last winter, she left us. At 89, her heart gave out quietly, as if she'd decided it was time to rest. The funeral was small, just family and a few neighbours, the air thick with incense and grief. I stood by her pyre, watching the flames curl around her, and felt a hollow ache. She'd been my anchor, my storyteller, my home. Now I was alone with her house and its secrets. Clearing out her things was my responsibility as her only grandchild. My parents had passed years ago, and my aunts and uncles were too old to travel, so I drove to the house one chilly February morning, the keys jingling in my pocket like a promise I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. Act 2. Discovery walking into Grandma's house was like stepping into a memory. The air smelled of her, sandalwood and spices. Her shawls were still draped over the armchair, her old radio silent on the shelf. I wandered through the rooms, touching her things, the chipped teacup she loved, the photo of me as a toddler on her lap, her smile radiant even in faded sepia. Every corner held a piece of her, and every step made my chest tighter. I avoided the attic at first. There were boxes to sort, clothes to donate, and papers to file. But the hallway upstairs kept pulling my gaze. That padlocked door loomed, heavier now without her presence to soften it. On the third day, I found the key. It was tucked inside her locket, the one she always wore, a small silver oval engraved with a lotus. I'd been sorting her jewellery, deciding what to keep, when I clicked it open. Inside was no photo, just a tiny brass key, cold against my palm. My heart thudded. This was it, the key to the attic, hidden where only she could keep it close. I stood before the door, key in hand, and hesitated. Her words echoed. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. But she was gone, and the silence felt louder than her warnings. The lock clicked open with a groan, and the door creaked inward, revealing a narrow staircase swallowed by shadows. The attic smelled of dust and time, the air thick with something heavier than memory. A single bulb flickered on, casting dim light over a cluttered space. There were trunks, crates, and shelves lined with objects that didn't belong in my grandmother's tidy world. A cracked mirror leaned against one wall, reflecting my wide-eyed face. A pile of old saris, once vibrant, lay faded in a corner. And on a small table sat a wooden box, its lid carved with intricate paisley patterns. I opened the box first. Inside were letters, yellowed and brittle, tied with a red ribbon. The handwriting was elegant, in Urdu, addressed to someone named Amrita, my grandmother. The dates were from the 1940s before partition. One letter began, "My heart, you are my home, no matter where this war takes us." My throat tightened. Who had written this? Grandma never spoke of love, only of my grandfather, who died before I was born. Next, I found a stack of photos. Some showed a younger grandma, her smile brighter than I'd ever seen, standing with a man whose face was scratched out, leaving only a blur of ink. Others were of a child, a girl, maybe 5, with grandma's eyes. But grandma had never mentioned a daughter. My stomach churned as I dug deeper, finding a wartime ID card with her name and a date, 1947, the year of partition. Then I saw the diary. It was leather-bound, its pages warped with age. I hesitated, feeling like I was trespassing, but I opened it. The first entry was dated August 1947. Act 3, Truth and Aftermath. We ran through the night, the screams behind us like a tide. I held her hand, my little Noor, my light, until the crowd tore us apart. I searched for days, but she was gone. My heart broke, and I buried it with her name. Grandma's words spilled across the pages, raw and jagged. She wrote of fleeing Lahore during partition, of violence that tore families apart. She was 20, newly married to a man she barely knew, my grandfather, but in love with someone else, a poet named Faisal. He'd written the letters, promising a life they'd never have. He died in the riots, and she carried his memory in silence. Then there was Noor, her daughter, born before my father. A child she lost in the chaos, never found. Grandma wrote of guilt that haunted her, of dreams where Noor called her name. She locked those memories in the attic, along with Faisal's letters and Noor's tiny shoes. Too painful to face. But the diary wasn't the strangest thing. Tucked in its final pages was a photograph of me as a child, grinning in a red kurta dated 1985. I wasn't born until 1992. My hands shook as I stared at it, the attic suddenly colder. Another photo showed Grandma holding a baby, her face lined with grief, the date scrawled as 1970, my father's birth year. But the baby wasn't him, it was a girl with my eyes. I flipped back to the diary, desperate for answers. The last entry, written a year before her death, read, "I see her in you, Beta. Noor's soul, reborn. I locked the attic to keep her safe, to keep you safe. Some doors let the past follow. My breath caught. Was she saying I was Noor, reincarnated? It sounded impossible, but the photo burned in my hand. That night I slept in Grandma's bed, the diary beside me. I dreamed of a little girl running through a burning village, her hand slipping from mine. I woke, gasping, the attic key still in my pocket, heavy as a stone. The next day I found a portrait in the attic, hidden behind a crate. It was Grandma, younger, but her eyes seemed to shift, aging as I stared. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and heard a whisper, "Beta!" Not her voice, but something older, softer. I locked the attic and left the house, the portrait and diary in my bag. I've spent months piecing it together. Historians confirmed the violence Grandma described. A neighbour, ancient and half-blind, remembered her searching for a lost child in 47. The photos, the dates, they defy logic, but they feel true. Grandma's silence wasn't secrecy, it was protection. She carried Noor's loss, Faisal's love, and a fear that something followed her, something tied to me. I keep the attic locked now. The house is mine, but I don't live there. I visit, leaving marigolds on the veranda, whispering her name. I understand her now, her kindness, her pain, her locked doors. She was guarding me, maybe from a past that wasn't done with us. Some nights I feel a hand brush mine, small and warm like a child's. I don't look back. The mustard yellow house stood silent under a grey March sky, its windows like eyes watching me as I parked the car. I hadn't been back since that February day when I'd locked the attic and fled, the diary and that impossible photograph of me, dated 7 years before my birth, burning a hole in my bag. I'd spent weeks in Delhi, drowning in work, trying to forget the whisper I'd heard, the small hand that brushed mine in the dark. But Grandma's house pulled me back, like a thread tied to my bones. I told myself I was here to finish sorting her things, to decide whether to sell the place. But the truth was in my pocket. The brass key, still cold no matter how long I held it. At night, I dreamed of the attic, of Noor's tiny shoes, of Grandma's portrait with eyes that seemed to age. In one dream, a girl's voice called, "Beta, come back." Not Grandma's voice. Someone younger, someone lost. The house smelled the same, sandalwood, spices, and something heavier now, like damp earth after rain. I avoided the upstairs hallway at first, focusing on the kitchen, where Grandma's copper pot still hung, gleaming faintly. I found her recipe book, its pages stained with turmeric, her neat handwriting listing ingredients for my favourite aloo parathas. A note in the margin read, "For Beta, always." My eyes stung. How could I sell this place her heart, but the attic wouldn't let me be? At dusk, as the marigolds in the garden glowed orange, I heard it, a faint creak from upstairs, like a footstep on the attic stairs. My pulse raced. I was alone, the nearest neighbour a kilometre away. I grabbed a flashlight and the key, my hands shaking. Grandma's words echoed, "Some doors aren't meant to be opened," but I'd already opened it once. There was no going back. The hallway was darker than I remembered, the padlocked door looming like a sentinel. The key turned with a reluctant groan, and the attic stairs yawned before me, dust motes swirling in the flashlight's beam. I climbed, each step creaking louder than my heartbeat. The attic was as I'd left it. The cracked mirror, the pile of faded saris, the wooden box now closed on the table. But something felt different. The air was thick, pressing against my skin, and the mirror reflected not just me, but a flicker of movement behind, a shadow that vanished when I turned. I opened the box again, needing to ground myself in something real. The letters and photos were still there, Faisal's words to Grandma aching with love. "You are my home." I reread her diary, Noor's loss cutting deeper each time. Then I noticed something I'd missed before, a loose floorboard under the table, slightly raised. I pried it up, revealing a small tin box, rusted but intact. Inside was a locket, identical to Grandma's, but its lotus engraving was scratched, as if clawed at. I clicked it open. A tiny photograph showed a girl, Noor, unmistakably with Grandma's eyes, smiling at someone out of frame.